Moving on, though, we were taking a pretty big jump up to the San Antonio Spurs. These next couple of teams all have 28.5 as their over-under. The Spurs won 22 games last season, over-under 28.5. That means they would have to win 39 games, which is plus
Mm-hmm.
17 from what they did last year.
A lot of games.
The obvious argument for is Victor Wembanyama, best
Yeah.
prospect since LeBron. And as a reminder, in LeBron's first season, he came to a 17-win Cavs team, got them to 35 wins plus 18. However, they were not a surprise team because their over-under was 29.5. So they only beat that over-under by 6 games or so.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
not a surprise team, but obviously very impressive what LeBron did in his first season. And so if you do think that he is on the level of a generational prospect like LeBron, maybe you might expect him to be able to turn around a franchise that quickly. I think another argument for the Spurs is that they're unlikely to tank. There's been, people speculating, are they going to play Wembanyama on back-to-backs? Are they going to play him all season? Is he really, can we really expect him to play 60, 65 games? I thought it was notable that at Media Day, Pop said, quote, "But this year with development, I think one of the important factors to enhance that development is winning. So winning is as important this year as learning was in the past. So they have to continue to learn, but adding more wins, I think, is appropriate, mandatory, helpful." Sounds like a guy who is kind of back to old Pop, 2 years ago, talking about how much he hated tanking. And they did tank last year. Sounds like we're back to normal Pop. He doesn't want to do that again. Older guy, why would he want to go through another tanking season? So that might
they're
be
also
an argument
playing him a
for
lot
them.
in the preseason too. I mean,
I
they're
know,
like
which
not shying
somewhat of a
away.
surprise.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you think, oh, they'll probably just like shelve him as much as they can. Like he's like played 20 minutes against the Rockets last night. I mean,
He's been playing all preseason.
He's been playing, and they're not holding back on that. So I would suspect that he will play as much as he can.
One more argument for the Spurs is that part of their tanking strategy last year, and I apologize, someone pointed this out on Twitter, and I thought it was interesting, but I forgot who pointed it out, was that they did a really good job of limiting the minutes of their best players playing together.
Yeah.
So, for instance, if you look at the three guys who had the best on-off numbers last season for the Spurs, it was Trey Jones, Zach Collins, and Jeremy Sohan. They played 155 minutes together, those three guys. I ask you, Andrew, who do you think are the three best players on the Spurs, the guys you would want to play together?
Yeah, it's probably Vassell, Sohan, and Keldon Johnson are probably the three best. You can throw in a Zach Collins in the mix if you'd like, but those are probably the three.
So those three, Vassell, Sohan, Keldon Johnson, under 300 minutes played together last season. So there is some upside that not just adding Wembanyama, but you're also hopefully, as long as everyone stays healthy, going to be playing all of your best players together more. You're going to see, the fruits of that over the course of the entire season.
Yeah.
The arguments against, they're the second youngest team in the league. Young teams tend not to win, though we saw OKC last year do it. The surprise team usually comes from a team with a new head coach. I didn't mention this earlier, but 38 of the 42 teams that have been surprise teams over the past 25 years had coaches who were in their first 3 seasons. 30 of the 42 had coaches in their first or second year. That does not sound like Coach Greg Popovich, who I believe is in his 27th or 28th season. He's a little bit off.
I would just argue that Pop just turns over a new leaf. He is like new Pop. When we talked to him in OKC last week, he talked about how, and this doesn't sound like an old school coach at all. He talked about how the days of treating players the same are over, that you can't treat players the same, which doesn't sound like a guy who's been around the league for that long. But he has. And so I don't know. I'm impressed with the way that he reinvents himself through the years. I mean, that's how you have this success and this longevity. So I don't know. I obviously he's not a new coach, but new mindset, does that count? Toward this
Pop 2.0, you would like to petition us to count him as a new coach.
It's probably like Pop 7.0.
Probably. In fact, if you look at the all the surprise teams, I believe there was only one team who had a coach who had more than 5 years of experience with
Wow.
that team. And it was Jerry Sloan back in the 03-04 season with the Jazz.
Hey,
He was in his 16th year that time.
yeah.
So listen, it could happen, but it wouldn't fit the profile
Yeah, yeah.
of the surprise teams we've seen so far. The last question would be, will they be motivated to push for wins over getting more developmental minutes for their more raw players on the roster? They can say, Pop can say that winning is more important now, but they have a lot of young guys on this roster. Guys like City Sissoko, who I really like. Are they
Yeah.
going to find minutes for those players that in a normal season might be just towards the back of the rotation and not really play that much? Or are
Mhm.
they truly going to be focused on just playing their best players who are still young, but maybe
Mhm.
not giving those developmental minutes as easily and sending those guys to the G League more? I think that's
Yeah.
another question.